like if Much Music obviously has kind of revived itself on TikTok, but I mean, if they ever want to go like, hey, I know we're getting that young audience, but the older audience is not happy with us. How do we get those back? It's like, how about you come out with some Funko Pops of the last people? And then that would be the first one they come out with is Rick Campanelli. And I'd be like, absolutely. This is how good my memory was. I remembered the conclusion of our last one, which was episode 48. I had to look that one up, but I told you to get your own Funko Pop.
You did. You did.
This was
because you got your own, right?
Absolutely. I always have my own. This is my kind of mock one. No, I'm only kidding. I found this color. Like what? Yeah, different hair color. Like in the back here, not that it's great. I've got like 3 or 4 here.
Yeah.
They're like John Oliver, Conan. Someone gave me an Adam Sandler. What's the movie? See, this dates me, but it's like the one where he wears a Boston Bruins jersey.
Oh, Happy Gilmore?
There you go. Happy Gilmore.
Happy Gilmore?
Yeah.
Nice.
And then I got this one from a friend that was like Joey Tribbiani, but I'm like, you know what? In my mind, this does kind of look like Rick Campanelli.
When I used to wear the hair down, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, like, you know,
I love those little things. Those are the cutest little things.
Like if Much Music obviously has kind of revived itself on TikTok, but I mean, if they ever want to go like, hey, I know we're getting that young audience, but the older audience is not happy with us. How do we get those back? It's like, how about you come out with some Funko Pops of the last people? And then that would be the first one they come out with is Rick Campanelli. And I'd be like, absolutely.
See, I didn't even know that's what they were called. Funko Pops.
Yeah, neither did I. I mean, only for like I used to collect bobbleheads, and then someone was like, "Yeah, it's like I'm gonna collect a Funko Pop." I was like, "You mean a bobblehead?" And they're like, "No, it's like a figure, but you don't unbox it." I was like, "That sounds stupid." And then when someone gave me a Conan one, I was like, "This is actually not that bad. They're like pretty cheap, and you just have it on a desk." Like someone at my workplace has like 20, and they just, you know, they can just stack them, and then you come over and you're like, conversation starter.
There's like thousands of those things around.
Yeah. I mean,
the thing about toys when we were kids, you say you don't unbox them. I used to unbox everything and play with everything. That's why I'll never make a cent on my toys or my hockey cards, because I never kept them in mint condition.
Yeah.
I played with them, and I battered the crap out of them. You know, my little Star Wars figurines, my Wayne Gretzky rookie cards, you know, the list goes on and on. I never, you know, looked into the future and thought to myself, these could be worth thousands of dollars one day.
Yeah, I mean, I had, when I was younger, every time I had like kidney stones, great way to start the conversation, but I had kidney stones, and
I had one of those. Yeah.
Every time I went into surgery when I was younger, the thing to kind of get you like, basically, yes, Brian, this is going to be a pain in the ass, but you'll get a wrestler from it. And I used to tell people, this is how I got my collection of like 300 wrestlers. They're like, you had 300. I'm like, listen, no, I did not have that many. I had birthdays and everything in between, but every time we had one, I'd get a wrestler. And to this day, when you were younger, you had like student of the, I guess they did it like monthly or weekly. It's like you just, and I was like, when you think about it, when you're older, you're like, these kids know me since I've been in kindergarten. What the hell is the point in grade 4 being like, yeah, in case you didn't know that I exist, here's a few things about me you might like. So I had like this Triple H wrestler, and this kid named Nathan came over and cracked the leg off of it. And I was like, all right, so there's a surgery that was wasteful, like wasted.
So was it more of an incentive or more a reward?
I think it's a little bit
kidney stone.
I think it was more of a reward to be like, hey, it's something that when you're older, you're supposed to, I guess, know a little bit more about. But as a kid, you're like, why do I have this? And why is this going to be painful? And they're like, well, listen, just get through it and you get something out of it.
Brian, I was just going to say, I had one of those and it was the most painful thing I ever had to deal with in life. You've had multiple? Man, God bless you.
I constantly still have them, but it's just one of those things where it's like apparently blasting of blasting them does the trick. I know there's an audience out there that's like, you have Rick Campanelli on and you're talking about kidney stones. I feel like,
well, that's something we can both relate to. I experienced that. I actually remember, I'll never forget the day I was on a ET Canada shoot with, it was a new reality show. It was on the Food Network, and I think it was the Great Donut Challenge or something along those lines.
Okay.
I was in so much pain, Brian, and I'm trying to get through this interview / experience of talking to these contestants. And honestly, God, next thing you know, I'm calling up was she my then wife or my fiance, Angie, at the time? She had to come. I was in so much pain, I couldn't even drive my car. She drove me right to the emergency at St. Michael's.
Yeah.
Or was it the General? Or one of the hospitals downtown Toronto. And they had no room at the inn. So I had to go to at least 2 or 3 different emergencies at hospitals. And finally one took me, I forget which one took me, but yeah, I'll never forget that whole experience. Now you've had this multiple times happen to you, and I'm not sure if you remember each and every situation that you were in, but I'll never forget. It was that painful. Experience.
I remember most of them. Most times they just put you to sleep, or like I remember when you were younger, they put you to sleep. Now they have a thing where it's like it's kind of like they put you to sleep, but you're not really out, but you're kind of like on a high, so you don't really know about it.
I was gonna say, I remember the drugs they gave me. Oh my gosh, I remember those, and those put me on another planet. Those, anyhow, sorry.
No, I was gonna make a joke there where it's like, they gave you so much drugs that then you went back to much music, and then you were like, I think I'm gonna highlight my hair. It's like, all right, I don't know what happened, but in fairness, I did that way, I think, later in life than you did. So it was almost like I had friends at Carleton that would be like, no, Brian, why would you do that? And I'm like, I think it looked cool. I think it looks cool. And the next minute, it's like, this is horrible.
It does look cool for each and every one of us for a few minutes. But then, like you said, then you relook at the pictures and you look back at those times, and it's like, okay, well, I experienced it once. I tried anything once, and I did it. I haven't gone back to doing the Platinum Blonde. That was. I remember because I was interviewing Christina Aguilera in the window of Much Music, the old Much Music before it was renovated, and I had a bucket hat on, and I wanted it to be a surprise because the next day was the MMVAs, and I was going to unveil my new hair with Britney and whoever else was at those MMVAs, and that was like late 90s, but that was all the rage back in the late 90s, man. We all had the frosted tips going.
I'm always curious about that, because I know, you know what, it's kind of interesting because we both, I mean, you've done it more than I have, and then there's going to be people like, how dare he compare himself to Rick Campanelli? It's like, well, you know what, it's my show, so I'm going to do what I want to do. But like, have you ever had to sit down with like a celebrity like Britney, Christina, or whatever, and say, hey, can we do that a little bit over because we didn't get that, or I noticed something in the background?
Oh my goodness, Brian, when we did things at Much Music, 95% of it was live. You can't do anything over.
Okay, yeah.
So most of the time you're just meeting the person for the first time when you introduce them into the environment. Now that was Much Music, and we talked to a lot more artists back then. Now when it came to ET Canada, sure, that stuff was all recorded. It was all pre-taped. So yes, producers would say, can we try that question again? Or can you give me that answer again? There was more of that going on.
Yeah.
But at Much, with all the Britneys and the Christinas and all the other ones, all the other artists, it was 95% of the time it was live.
Like that has to be.
So there was no do-over.
That has to be a bit crazy though, because I mean, you're relatively young at this point. Like I know it's kind of a different environment. Like I grew up watching that, and we discussed this obviously in the last interviews too. But I mean, it's kind of when you actually have face to face. Now I can kind of get reactions too. But like, it's interesting because when I'm watching it as a kid, I'm not really focused as much. Sorry, Rick, on you. I'm focused on the act, right?
But like,
when I got older, and I think a real kind of key part of the Much Music, which I think was a little bit of ahead of its time, but I would have liked it if it was still around, was like the whole VJ search and creating that. And then like a part of you is like, all right, whatever. This is like an hour content show that I'm trying to fill something in. But when you get older, you're like, all right, this is kind of interesting. Like, how are they going to react when it's like, now you have 60 minutes to get this out, and how are you going to do? And you're like, oh, what a loser. You couldn't get it out in 60 minutes. But then when you go to school and actually do radio and TV, you're like, I want to go back and rewatch some of that stuff and see how, even if you had a TV on yourself when you were younger, to see how you reacted at that time. And you're probably like, what an idiot. And now you're like, hold on now. That's actually not that bad for 60 seconds. Yeah, he went over, but God, he got through it.
Well, the thing too about those live interviews, and I much prefer live interviews, something like this, you get it out there, you can't get it back. The other approach made it too polished. Like the ET Canada type approach was too polished and going after the best things in the interview. The Much Music approach was anything can happen with Green Day. Yeah. Anything can happen with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, because knowing these guys, anything will happen. And that was the fun. That was the fun of it. We loved when things went off the rails. I preferred when things went off the rails because you don't see that stuff in polished interviews. So
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, whenever that stuff happened, oh man, bring more of that on. I want more of that. I don't want just the question, the answer, and some interesting answer. That's all good stuff. But when weird things start happening, it's amazing. It's amazing stuff.
Do you find now, obviously, like, because people talk about, like, obviously on Instagram now, you always see kind of motivational speeches, or I scroll through Instagram and I've been told that my algorithm sucks because of what I see. But it's like, I'm like, all right, maybe you're right, because I like one video and you're like, oh my God, he liked this video. Let's show him the rest of this stuff. Cause like, I'll get ones where it's like, yeah, if you fail and you never tried, have you ever really failed? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I don't know where you're going with this, but I laugh at it. Yeah, but I laugh at, like, when you say you prefer live interviews, I kind of agree with you in a sense that when they're live or in the moment, like, if you mess up, but you then learn. Like, I look back at some of the early interviews I've done and I'll be like, you know what? If these were pre-recorded or someone said, we're going to do this over, it doesn't really feel the same because people actually didn't see your growth. Like, I look back to the first interview I think I did with, like, Max Kerman of the Arkells, and I thought it was great. And then I asked one of my friends that loves the Arkells, and he's like, you sound like you just woke up and that Max is boring. I'm like, oh shit. So then I went to Max. I'm like, I'm sorry if I sounded like I was, like, not interested. He's like, no, man, it was fine. But, like, I like that he was like, it was fine. Now in his mind, he was probably like, that was okay. But in my mind, I'm like, okay, he didn't say it was great. So now how do I improve upon that? Yeah. So that the next time, like, I don't want to come in here like I just woke up with coffee and I'm just like, yes, let's talk about everything. It's like, no, you can be normal.
You can. Yeah, that's a good point. You can be normal. Listen, you and I are both fans. That's the bottom line. I'm a fan of music. You're a fan of music. I'm a fan of film. You are as well. We love that world. We were fans first before we got the jobs that we have right now. So yeah, but when you're interviewing someone like John Travolta, who you grew up watching on Welcome Back, Kotter and Saturday Night, Fever, and all these amazing, the world knows the works of these actors. So you get a little nervous and you get a little hyper that you have to learn. And that was one of my first interviews with a big actor. You do have to learn to reel in your excitement and be normal and be that person that's asking those questions to get those great answers. We're still fans deep down inside, and we still have the butterflies flying all over the place inside, but it's our job now to get the best out of this person. They may be our hero in front of us. We may have grown up with them on the television or on the big screen, and we're huge fans, but we still have a job to do. And you learn from that over time. And I've learned to settle into my job over time too, and the more people you talk to, it really it really tends to settle you down at a fast rate. The more you do, the more comfortable you feel with it. And but those first interviews that I was doing, because I'm a punk kid from Hamilton that went to go see a rock and roll show every night of the week, man. I'm a fan of the Chili Peppers, the Foo Fighters, all these bands.
Yeah.
So when you interview them, you can still be a fan, but you do have a job to do.
Yeah,
sure.
I think it's interesting because I think Tom Power had sent when we interviewed him like a while ago too. He had mentioned like, you know, you can be a fan of these people, but it's like you got to remember what your job is. And in his case, you know, employed with CBC at the, and I think he still is, but like, you know, you can't if someone's here on your show and you're gonna like skip over the question that people want asked. It's kind of like, yeah, I get it. Like, it's like having, for me, if I had Conan O'Brien on and you don't talk about the Tonight Show, people are going to be like, what happened? Why didn't you? It's like, oh, right, because you were a fanboy and you didn't. It's like, no. And then like, no, it absolutely was. So he's like, there's a time that you have to ask people tough questions and you don't necessarily feel comfortable with it.
Right.
But you know, if you don't, there's going to be people, especially in the world we live in now, in social media, they're going to come after you and be like, what happened? Why didn't you go for it?
Yeah, you just save those questions to the end, right?
I want to ask you too, because when you're talking about obviously like tough questions, do you remember like any kind of tough questions through either through ET, through Much Music, or obviously we're going to get into what you do now as well, but like anything that you remember of like, oh, like I don't really want to ask this, but if I don't, someone's going to be in my ear saying, what happened?
Yes. Oh gosh, that happened a handful of times. I remember, because we'd go over our questions before I'd go to a junket or before I was sitting down with someone to interview them. Now, this happened more at ET Canada.
Okay.
And so there would be actors or actresses that got themselves into a little bit of, you know, hot water here or there, whatever the case may be. And of course, our producers want the juice. They want the meat. They want the real story. And there were those moments where, okay, now I'm left with it. I have to ask this person the question that my producer wants me to ask. I've had a great interview with them, and now I gotta unload this awful question that they're gonna probably just get up and walk away from. I can't remember now off the top of my head what the question was or who it was, but I do remember getting into those situations and going back to my producer and saying, I just ran out of time, or not lying and saying, you know, I had to pass all my questions through their publicist, and that was the question that they just wouldn't let me ask.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a lot of pressure to ask those questions, and we're talking about questions that they were going to ruin relationships.
Yeah.
With the person and the brand that I worked with. So why even go there?
That's weird. Like, so if it's going to ruin the relationship with the brand and the person, you would think that the people that want you to ask that question would look and say, why? Right? Like,
right. Is it worth it? Is it worth getting that one answer for that one interview? And then, you know, years to come in the future, that person is saying, oh yeah, it's going to be Rick from ET Canada coming, or ET Canada. Oh no, we're going to pass on them because they asked that question back. Yeah. Well, producers, they wear that hat of, they just want that juicy, gossipy type answer to things. Half the time, these celebrities aren't going to answer that question, or they're going to play it off or something, like whatever the case may be. They're not going to get what they're looking for. The producer's not going to get what they're looking for.
I just like, sometimes I wonder who that target audience really is. Cause I mean, I know coming back,
they're out there.
Like, it's just weird. Cause when I'm growing up and listening to like music interviews, and I know you're probably like 10, 11, listening to like Backstreet Boys or Timberlake in an interview, but it's like, I'm just looking and being like, all right, like, I'm just interested that you're on TV and someone's asking you questions. But I guess when you're older, you kind of want to know it. But like, I look at the magazines that you go at, like Shoppers, or like when you go to Walmart and it's like, what is Meghan Markle doing now? I'm like, she's probably just being Meghan Markle. Why do I like, leave her alone? But there's definitely someone out there like, yes, I want to know what's going on with her and the royal family. It's like, but
of course.
What difference does it make to you? It's like, all right, worry about your neighbor next door and see if they're okay.
Brian, that's how the majority of those shows survive. They people, there's a market, there's people that want to know what Demi Moore was up to when Ashton Kutcher wasn't with her. Like, you know,
it's
sure, Ashton Kutcher's moved on,
yeah.
But I remember bringing that up with Ashton Kutcher for one of the junkets. I think Demi was at Tribeca that same weekend when I was in LA interviewing Ashton. We had cameras at Tribeca. Something happened with Demi. They wanted me to bring that up with Ashton, and I remember his answer, like, Are your people following my wife around?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, but some people wanted to know what Demi was up to without Ashton, you know, or
but
especially especially Bruce Willis was around.
Yeah, like it's got to be weird though, because I mean, sometimes obviously as you grow up, you put it in different perspectives. But like, imagine if you were sitting down here right now with me, and I asked you, "What's Angie up to?" And then you're just still like, all right, she's probably out around. I'm like, actually, we have a camera shot of her right now. And it's like, why? Why do you have a camera shot of my, or even worse, when it's like your kids, what are your kids up to? Like one's at school, actually, we have them filmed right now, skipping school. You're like, what are you doing? Why are you following my kids?
Exactly. But so you could just imagine the reaction of some people. But in this day and age, I'm not surprised. There's cameras everywhere. We all have a camera attached to our hip. So there's footage of everything all the time, all day long. And I think people crave that. Obviously, you know, they crave it. Some people, you know, you and I may be totally different. I don't, you know, if you were to ask me about my wife, I'm an open book, man. I like talking about, you know, my wife and my kids and my family. So, but some people, you know, some people are a little more private. You know, some people want or don't want people to know about what other people are doing in their lives, but it's all.
I guess it's like a bit of the personality and a bit of like, because I feel like, you know, I grew up on, even though I'll say Backstreet Boys and saying Christina Aguilera, like I'll look back and stuff on Instagram where they show like Christina Aguilera bringing Eminem to the stage when they had their beef, and I'm like, all right, like I kind of remember this as a kid, but don't really remember the beef. But now, like, I guess I'm growing up in the era where it's like every time Selena's on an interview, someone has to bring up Bieber. And I mean, it comes to the point where when you're at the beginning, you're like, yeah, I kind of wonder how she feels about Bieber. But at this point, I'm like, can you just not?
Yeah.
Like, don't relate her to Bieber.
No, you let that come out naturally. If Selena wants to talk about Justin while you're having an interview with her, and that's the beauty of interviews. Like you build up that friendship with that person sitting across from you, and if they want to go there, they go there. Yeah. And that makes for a wonderful interview. It's coming out naturally. You're not forcing it out of someone. That person isn't like, you know, white knuckled about things they don't want to talk about. It's and obviously it works when you have more time with people. Like when we used to do junkets, we'd get 4 minutes with a celebrity. It was in and out, like, and it was tough, man. You had to instantly become friends with them, win them over somehow, and get the best out of them in the next 3.5 minutes. Yeah, it was tough. It was tough.
I can imagine, like, it's funnier to me because I like to learn things on the fly. I like, obviously, you know, doing internships, you learn that way too, but I just find learning on the fly is a lot better. So I like when someone gives me like a 20-minute interview compared to like a 50-minute, I'm kind of like, okay, what things do I want to get in and out of? A 50-minute, I feel like it's a little bit more personal. It's a little bit more like take your time. With 20 minutes, I'm like, okay, what's the topics we have to hit? What do we got to discuss? Let's get it done. So then now if there's extra minutes, yes, we can get a little bit personal.
For sure.
I feel like when someone gives you like 10 to 15 minutes, in my mind, I'm like, oh shit, like I've got 3 questions. Hopefully you're not a big talker so that we can get through these. But
exactly.
It can be tough. I remember some interviews I'll look back at now and I'll say like, okay, did we really discuss a lot of things? And some people will be like, well, why am I going to listen to a podcast where you didn't really? And I'm like, you're right. But I guess the beauty for that is, to me, it's like, if you want to go listen to someone talk about their career and all that, there are other podcasts like
for that.
You have to find your way of marketing. Like that was the struggle, I think, for me early on, was to find a market of like, all right, I want to talk to these celebrities, but for most part, it was like, I want to talk to them. If you listen, I could care less. But now it's like, okay, I want you to listen so that you understand what's going on here. And then some people will come back and be like, I think it's still on like Apple Podcasts where it's a review where it's like, this host was not great. These acts deserve better. And it's like a year old. And I'm like, you know what? To you, maybe, but to someone else, they're probably like, I like the fact that he didn't spend 40 minutes just talking about what they're doing now. It's a general conversation. And I think that's where my market started to be like, we just have conversations. Like, people will still label them interviews, but I'm like, they're not really questions. I'm not here with a piece of paper going, let's ding, ding, ding. I'm like, all right, tell me about what you're doing.
No, it's a totally different setup for sure. You know, there are interviews where you got to get in and out and ask the questions. And then there's interviews that aren't interviews. Like you said, they're conversation. We're chatting, we're catching up, you're doing whatever. And it makes you more relaxed. And you've seen the way you've evolved over the years too. You said at first you were just doing this for you because you were a big fan of it, and that's amazing. That's awesome. But now, as your market grows and your exposure, and you want to reach more people, well, you're honing that in a bit more to what people need to hear about this person too.
Yeah, like I feel like you can find, for me, and I know there are people out there that will say, all right, and this is why sometimes people don't become as successful as they do, because like you were mentioning with PR kind of guides you of like, okay, ask these questions, don't ask this. Where I don't have, and it's no offense to anyone who does, but I don't have someone down my throat, like a label saying, if you do that, they're not coming on. I'm like, okay, well, that will be on me. If I ask the question, that person gets mad, that's on me.
That's on you. Yeah, for sure.
You know, if just say, if you had Ed Sheeran on and you mentioned something that he did not want to talk about, but you're like, I'm going to take a shot at this. And if they come back and say no, and he's not coming on, I'd be like, all right, the silver lining is you had him on for one interview, but then you bite the bullet and be like, you're never going to get him on again. So are you comfortable with that? But you have to.
My approach, Brian, would be build up a rapport with the person, build up a great camaraderie with this person in that time that you have them. Yeah. And if they want to come out and start talking about things that you're thinking that you're going to be asking them eventually, but if they just start spilling the beans, you know what I'm saying, like that, and that's happened before. You can sit down with someone after a few minutes and they could feel like, man, this guy feels like my best friend here. I can really open up to this person. But that makes for those golden nugget moments. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then once you get past that interview and that situation, well, then the next time with that person, it's just going to be smooth sailing. And then you're almost feeling like to yourself, like, we can open up to just about any can of worms with this person because they sort of trust you at that point, and they want to talk to you. They want to talk to someone about this that's going on, and they get to pick and choose. Well, I'm going to talk to Brian about this because we have such a great camaraderie now that we can just chat, have a conversation, and the people listening, well, this is what they want to hear, you know?
Yeah. So that's why you chose this podcast to announce that you and Angie are now divorced. And now we have now this is our camera shot to Angie. No.
Not at all, man. No, that's not happening. No. We just celebrated 9 years of marriage.
I want to ask you, like,
I've been down that road once before.
That's fair. I want to ask you about a different marriage. It's not actually like I'll call it more of a bromance, because I did see a post where you shared with George Strombo. I call him Strombo because we're close. We're best friends now.
Yeah, are you? Yeah, good.
No,
man. That's
definitely
great.
not.
No.
He's nice. He's nice. He came
that's
on.
The thing with George, you feel like you're his best friend because he gives you the time and he's that warm with people.
Yeah,
you know?
It's funny because I want to ask, when we had him on, and I think you'd agree to this, but like, I feel with Strombo, there's a lot of, when I was younger, and I did say this, so it's not like this is something that he hasn't heard. I was kind of terrified when Strombo came on, because it was like the piercings, and I'm a kid going like, this guy's giving me music news that I don't care about because it's like metal, and I'm just like, what the hell?
But there were people out there that cared about metal.
Absolutely. But as a kid, you don't, it's just your own bubble, your own world. So I remember telling him, as he got older, I was like, I liked watching his interviews on the Hour. I found them intriguing, but I asked him when he was like at Much Music, like, tell me what your experience was at Much. And he's like, it's different than today. People aren't like on TikTok. They're looking for fame. They're looking for the attention. And I was like, that's fair. Now they could be like my summarized words, but he's like, at Much, you had to be about something. If you weren't about something or didn't feel passionate about it, we'd know. He's like, people would pick up on it and you'd be gone because
Yeah.
people would see right through it. I'm like, that's kind of what I feel like sometimes we miss in this world, where there's people that are like doing things just to do them, but without actually having kind of an interest in it. Like if I'm looking for an act to come on and I'm basically saying to that PR, I'm a fan, I've bought a CD, I've done this and this and this, and then they come back and be like, all right, but what's the reach? And I'm like, okay, but if you have someone that has the reach, maybe they'll do the interview and they might not give a shit. So like, what do you want more?
Yeah. You want someone that's passionate and genuinely, sincerely into what your artist does, or you want to be put with someone that just wants numbers and follows and likes and all that stuff. It's you know what, back then we didn't have to worry about that problem. There was no social media. Back when I started in the mid 90s in George, listen, man, we lived music. We, honest to God, like when I was in Toronto, I'm from Hamilton, as you know, originally, but when I made the move to Toronto for my job, I was in heaven. Like Toronto's the mecca of rock and roll, of all genres of music. And I got to see live music every night of the week, Brian. I was in heaven. And that's, and I lived, I was so passionate, you know, not as much these days. I'm getting older. It's a different time. I got a big family. But back then in my 20s, when I was at Much, I was at the concert venues every night. I was, you know, rocking out to the bands that were up on stage. And then the next day I was interviewing, or whatever the case may be. Maybe I never got to interview them. I just wanted to see this band, but we were living it, man. We were so deep in it. We ate and breathed music. It was, we knew everything that there was to know about it, like, to tell you the truth. But that was our world. We needed to. That was our job as well. You know, we were VJs, and if we didn't know music, gosh, we were gone. Like there were 6 or 7 of us at a time on that we really needed to shine, and it just came naturally to most of us because George, myself, and T, we were into the music. Bill, like we lived it. You know, so that made it easy for us, talking about music videos, talking to music directors about their approach. It was a wonderful time, and it was a magical time. It's totally different now. It's all about, well, everyone wants to be a star, and everyone is a star with TikTok and Instagram and with a mobile device. That's cool. That's cool. I'm not knocking anybody on that, but we didn't have the resources, as many of them back in the 90s, let alone the 80s when Steve Anthony and Christopher Ward and Michael Williams were doing their thing, and Erica M, you know, like, no, we wanted to be there. We were passionate about what we were doing, and I think it came across, especially when bands came to town.
Yeah. It's like, you know what? You're fair because you won't knock it. I will. I knock TikTok all the time because it's like, I look at it and I'm just still like, okay, some of these are good. Some of these remind me of like maybe Vine. And I'm like, okay, that's
Vine. Remember
I like that content. But then there's some that's a TikTok where it's like the voiceover of a robot where it's like, I was at the park one day and this happened. I'm like, why does that have 20,000 views? Because a dog jumped over another dog. I'm like, it's interesting, but I don't understand, but okay.
It's the world we live in now. And that's happening because I read something the other day, because it was the anniversary of iPhone or whatever. There's over 2 billion of these iPhones around out there, and social media is everywhere, and TikTok and YouTube, and that's why there's 20,000 views on something that's so
it's just kind of like it came across my timeline, I guess. Sure. But I don't feel like I feel like it's like a false kind of sense of I'm not going to say accomplishment.
It's oversaturation is what it is.
But it's
saturation of visuals.
It's like, I feel like, and now I could be speaking for someone like myself, but you know, when you go on Instagram or you go on Twitter and then you see like the like button or the comment, and I know people when we were in high school that would get like 60 likes in a photo, and it's just a photo. And then someone would graduate from like university and like had the shittiest of upbringings, and it has like 2 likes and 1 comment that says congrats, and you're like, and then people look at that and they're like, but that's my value. I'm like, no, the thing that you just graduated with, that's your value.
Huge.
Now use that, and don't worry that someone had 2 likes, because years later that like's not going to matter. It matters
Yeah.
what you do with what you did. But
Great words right there.
Yeah,
Amazing.
but it's like people look at it and go like, well, I didn't get 60 likes. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
but in years' time, if you look back and be like, yeah, I got 60 likes, and you brag about having 60 likes, no one's going to care. They're going to be like, 60 likes on what? And they're like,
do you see the pressure society is putting on these people to acquire likes, to acquire comments? It's crazy insane to me. And that pressure leads to mental conditions. It's just, it's terrible where we're going with this. And I feel so, like, we're a lot older. I feel so bad. And my heart breaks for the young ones that are relying on likes and comments to up their self-esteem. It's sad. That's not needed. We need to build these people up, but they don't need to rely on likes and comments and all this. It's just, to me, man, and to you, and you said it, it's just so sad what it's come to.
I want to ask you now, of course, like we've gone pretty much a little bit over what we did in the past, discussed a few things which I thought is interesting because they're conversation pieces as it is. I'm sure people at the beginning will be like, man, I could really use not listening to the kidney stone piece. I'd be like, I could use not having the kidney stones.
Yeah, but exactly.
Tell me a little bit about more like your latest gig now, because you're back in radio. You've done radio before, but like, tell me like how excited or how thrilled you are for it now, and like the different perspective of when you first got into it compared to now.
No, it's the most amazing gig, and I'm so excited. Honest to gosh, I'm excited to wake up at 3:30 every morning. Call me crazy, but it's a gig that it's the right fit finally for me. It's not a big corporation. It's a small, independent, family-run radio station, Z1035, and the people are genuine. There's no politics. There's no backstabbing or talking behind this person's back.
That's no fun at all. No, I'm only kidding.
All family, and I very, working with big corporations, it was totally different. It's a different beast. So I'm loving it, man. I started back in mid-November, and I love it. I'm paired with a radio veteran, Sandra Crawford, who's been doing it now for many, many years in all different markets all across Canada. So she is the radio pro. I'm just this TV guy stepping in. Although, like you said, I have done some radio in the past on the Edge in Toronto. I did some radio with Chin, which is an Italian multicultural radio station in Toronto. And that gig was all volunteer. I just wanted to give a bit back to the Italian community. And then when I was at Much, we obviously did the Much Music Countdown on Chum FM, which is a big station in Toronto as well. So yeah, I dabbled into it, but I never found a perfect fit. Like, I'm talking perfect fit where this is my only gig. It's my full-time only gig. Like in the past, I was moonlighting when I was on the Edge with ET Canada, or when I was with Chin, I was with ET Canada. Chum, I was with Much Music. This is my sole gig now, and I love it, man. I get up early, I'm there early, and I'm back home early to spend the day with my wife. And when the kids are home, we spend the day together as a family. So it's the best of every world. If you can imagine that. And it's a gig that I've always wanted. I've always wanted a situation like this. I leave our home here at 4:30 every morning, and I'm back by like 10:30, and the day's just beginning for us here as a family. And it's absolutely perfect. And then going back to that whole live element that we had at Much Music and we talked about, well, it's all live. We don't record anything. Everything from 6 till 10 a.m. is live. It's out there. We talk to our listeners. We have a ton of fun. We play music that they love. And we play all sorts of genres. I think we played Sum 41 this morning, and we'll play Stevie B in the same hour. It's crazy. We have this hour called Way Back Wake Up, and people go way back to the 90s, and we'll play music that we haven't heard in years. So it's a wonderful gig. Thank you for asking me about it. It's, you know, for the first time in my life, I can genuinely say I'm absolutely in love with what I, you know, sure, I felt that way at much because it was my first stab at a gig, you know, leaving university. But as I go through life and I get older in life, and I'm in my 50s now, I absolutely love everything about this gig that I'm doing right now. Yeah, I'm honored to be there.
This is where like the paparazzi part of me will take what you just said and then the quote of like, Rick Campanelli said he never really liked much music, and this was the perfect gig of his whole life. And then people were like, "That's clickbait. I am watching it." And then they listen to what you actually said. They'd be like, "He didn't say that at all." I'd be like, "But it got you to listen."
The good thing about I know what you're saying. The headline, right? The good thing about all my past gigs is that I've genuinely loved everything that I've done since leaving university. You know, prior to leaving university, like I wasn't into removing asbestos as much, or delivering telephone books for 7 cents a book, or doing all those jobs. But I can genuinely say I've fallen into careers and jobs that I've loved. I'm saying now that I'm at this point in my life and in my career that I would take this over anything right now. Those other jobs that I had, because it's a different time for me in life, and it allows me more time, more flexibility. You can say what you want to say on radio, on live radio, and there's no one watching over you like there was at some other jobs that I've held.
Yeah.
But what's coming out of my mouth is me. It's Rick Campanelli. Like at ET Canada, you know, maybe I was 70% me. And my wife's in the background right now. She was one of my producers at ET Canada, and she's probably agreeing with me right now. Like we were able to thumbs up. She's giving me the thumbs up. Like we had producers, and we had to say this, we had to say that. You know, we could be ourselves too. But this job as a radio host right now is giving me everything that I've ever wanted. It's, you know. Sorry to keep going on this.
No.
But,
I'm
really into what I'm doing these days. I love it.
I think your kids played you very well, because they just came into the shot and then just kind of stared right into the camera, like as if they go like, "Who is he talking to?
Who's this guy? This doesn't look like Eminem."
Like, who is he talking to? Who is this guy? Like, who's he interviewing now? And why is he doing it from home? I want to ask you though, like, you know, because I think I remember seeing when you got this gig. I think one of the first interviews that I was kind of intrigued with, and I know I'm in Newfoundland, but the power of like radio and media, you can kind of listen to all stations anywhere.
Yeah, sure.
I think you like landed, I think it was like, I could be wrong, but it was like Nick Carter, I think you had on as a guest at one point.
I reached out to Nick. Well, these are the relationships you make over the years when you talk to bands and artists so many times. You become friends with them. Acquaintances, I guess. You exchange numbers here and there. And thank God that happened, because good people remember good people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when I reached out to Nick, when I found out he was doing great things for this pediatric cancer hospital in Las Vegas, well, I thought to myself, and I asked my co-host, like, let's reach out to Nick, and maybe he'll want to, you know, spread the word and talk about this event that he's doing. And just like that, Brian, I received a text back from Nick saying, "Yeah, I'm into this. Let's talk about it. When can we do this?" So it was wonderful. Nick came on. I wish we could have had him a lot longer.
Yeah.
He was so pro, and you know, I've seen Nick grow throughout the years. Like I think the first time interviewing Nick in the mid 90s, he was 16, 17.
Yeah.
He was the youngest member of the Backstreet Boys, but now he's got a family, he's got kids. He's helping raise money for pediatric hospitals. Like, this is Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys, who's saying and continues to sing "Quit Playing Games with My Heart." But no, he's evolved into an amazing person. He always was, but now he's giving back as much as he can. But yeah,
he's like a Pokemon, right? Like when you first catch it, and then it's like you evolve. No.
But that's the beauty of keeping in touch with people. Like, I'm on a radio station. We play, you know, boy bands. We play Backstreet Boys. if we can get Nick on with us to talk about what he's doing lately, let's do it. And it worked. It happened.
I think it's kind of interesting you say that, because I mean, I'm not gonna. I mean, it's fair game if you want to, but like obviously in your cell phone right now, from like obvious, like all the connections that you have, like if you could give like a rough number, like I'm talking about like musicians that we remember. Do you have like say 20 people that you look in your phone book right now, or phone book in your phone and be like, you know what? If I want this person on, I just send them a text and they might come on.
I just, you know what? Before I got on with you, I found out that there's some changes in a TV show are happening, and we talked about it on the radio this morning. And I just happened to keep in touch with this gentleman, and I just reached out to him. Now, I've been on with you for the past hour and a bit, so I'm hoping that there's a reply, a text back from him waiting for me saying, yeah, let's talk about my new gig. But it is an amazing thing when you talk to someone, an artist, a musician, an actor, and then the next thing you know, it's like, here, take my number, put it in your phone. I really like the way this went. If there's an opportunity in the future to do this again, I want to make sure it happens. So yes, I love that. I love that. I'm not saying, I just love the fact that people open up the way they do. And, it just makes, approaching them that more simpler, because you don't have to go through PR people or publicists or people that are usually going to shoot things down. You know what I'm saying? You can go right to the source, right to the horse herself or himself, and get a yes or no. That's simple. That's basically it. You build up these relationships with these people over the years, and you're put in that position of reaching out to them directly now. And so it's worked for me.
How do you, I'm just curious, from like someone like myself, that I feel like there's going to be like an audience out there, like, he does his own interviews and he's asking another guy how he gets it done. But I mean, that's kind of how you learn. But I mean, like, at what point, because I know sometimes when I have acts on, if it's like a hockey player, I don't know, I feel like more comfortable with like hockey players or like sports athletes, where you're like, you know what, like, do you mind if we exchange an email or text? And sometimes they'll like say no, and then you're like, all right, that's fine. Sometimes they say yes. But I'm wondering, like, for you, when at what point of the stage in the relationship do you say, hey Nick, can we exchange numbers?
I always made sure, especially if the artist came back, numerous times. Like I remember Good Charlotte. I remember becoming good friends with the brothers, and I was almost on my way out of Much Music at the time. And I remember Good Charlotte used to come in a ton, and you build this friendship with them. And I remember asking the brothers, I go, I'm leaving Much, and I didn't know what my next step was. I thought I was going to do a talk show, and I was pitching ideas to different networks. And I remember asking them, guys, can we keep in touch, because I want you to be the first guest on my talk show if it happens. And they said, listen, we've loved the way we've interacted over the years in all our interviews. We'd be honored to be your first guest. Now, listen, that never went anywhere. The talk show never, saw the light of day. But when you talk to someone so often and you build up a friendship, not just a working relationship, but an actual friendship as well, good people are willing, and they want to help you out on the next chapter or the next, for you and for what we do now. It's like, listen, I had such a great time with you. Would you mind if we exchanged phone numbers or emails? Because when that next opportunity comes up in the future, I'd love to sit down with you and ask you questions about it. And that's the simplest way of doing it. And if they like you, if they liked what they've experienced in the half hour or hour, 99% of them are going to say, yes, let's exchange, because we want to do this again. It's fun,
Yeah. I just think it's interesting, because I brought that point up just because I remember the first time trying to get you on, and I know we've had you on in episode 48, and now it's been, I think it's like 100 odd episodes later.
Yeah. You've done so many amazing interviews since, and you really have.
But it's funny because when we asked, I was like, I remember Googling like Rick Campanelli contact, and it's like, then you see like It's like, oh yeah, well, you pay him $500 and he'll come speak to you. I'm like, I don't want to pay him $500 just to come speak. I'm like, it's like, it was like at this point, it was like a website that it was like for speaking engagement and all this. And like, there were other people there too. Like if you looked up, say, Brian Williams, it's like, yeah.
Oh, that would have been the National Speakers Bureau or the Atlantic Speakers Bureau.
Yeah. So I was
those speaking agencies.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, I'm not doing that. And then I just kept on searching, and I don't even know really how I got the contact. I think it was like through ET. I think at that point.
It was, yeah. Because it was way before social media. Yeah.
Yeah. And then ET was like, all right, like we'll reach out to him and see. And then I was like, okay. And I think eventually I followed you on Twitter, Facebook, like Instagram. And then I think it just started with a few years after that interview. I sent you like I think something on Instagram, maybe just like a, hey, or, you know, here's an episode that we did with Rick, and then you retweeted it or shared it. And I was like, all right, like, let's see how Rick Campanelli really is. So then I just started sending like, hey, Rick, how's it going? What's up? And then I was like, he's probably going to like, can this guy leave me alone now? And then I was like, oh, it's like, oh, he's okay. He's friendly. Like, I feel like we're buddies, but at the same point, it takes sometimes for me. Now, other people would be like, how dare you talk to Rick Campanelli after your interview? What are you doing? But I'm like, for me, it's almost like that's how you'll find out what exactly relationship you have with someone. Like, I know with some acts that we've had on, they're like cordial. You see them in person, you'll talk to them, but you also know like, all right, this isn't a person I'm going to send a message at like 2 a.m. and be like, hey, loved your concert last night. They'll be like, can you only message me when we're both needing something? I'm like, that's fair. Yeah.
No, you know, it's my absolute honor to you know, and I know you've been at it for years now, but listen, when I was first starting out, I needed as much help as I could get. And I would ask for help and advice to the other VJs, the producers, because I was new to that world. I'm a phys ed grad, and I was going to go on to be a phys ed teacher. So to dive into a world where I really basically know nothing about, I wanted all the help. So, and now I'm in the position where I can offer advice and try to help someone along if they're passionate about what they're doing, like you years ago. And I would never say no to those opportunities, like, because I'm putting myself in your shoes. If that was me trying to reach out to someone, I'd want that person to say, yeah, I'll give you 20 minutes. Let's talk. Let's do it. And it just, you gotta help your fellow man, you know, in this world. Everyone can use the help, especially for, you know, getting started out in the business or whatever it is. I wish there were more people like that back in the day. But
well, I mean, for as cheesy as it sounds, I mean, to kind of wrap it up here as well, but for as cheesy as it sounds, like when you did that for me, like, I mean, I'm a Newfoundlander born and raised anyway. I feel like it's instilled in our blood where it's like, you didn't help your neighbor. Okay, take his Newfoundland card away. How dare he not?
Right, that's right.
But like,
you guys are some of the nicest people in Canada out there.
Yeah. But I remember when you reached out and helped me, there was like, I think maybe 2 years later, someone from Newfoundland that was like a person with disability starting their own podcast reached out to me asking what equipment and stuff that they needed. And like, I was like thinking about like the way they worded the email. And I know sometimes you want to put yourself over and be like, all right, like, you know, especially with PR, you want to put yourself as like, listen, I'm going to be like a great thing in the future, maybe. But you don't put it that way. You're probably like, I'm going to be good, so let me do an interview. But the way they put it in an email was like, oh, this person has seen so many of your interviews. They really liked you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, this person's making me think I'm Conan O'Brien here. So I was like, if I come back and be like, no, actually, I'm so much better off, then I feel like I'd feel a little bit shitty because I was in that situation 1.2. And I remember actually doing like a Zoom chat. And this is like, I told you I'm not a big Zoom person, but this was the only way at the time that they did Zoom. And I remember when she was on, she was like very nervous because she had someone helping her kind of communicate. And I remember telling them like, take all the time you want. I've got like 3 hours allotted here for you. I know it's not going to take 3 hours, but sometimes it's just that comfort zone of letting people know, like, I know what you might think I am because of like how interviews go, where you think it's so professional, but being a little bit humble or like letting people know, like, I make mistakes too. I'm looking for help along the way. Makes them more human.
Oh, right. No doubt about it. That's the bottom line. It really does.
I mean, I feel like if you didn't have to reach out to me, I'd be like, Rick Campanelli didn't help me out, so why the fuck would I help you out? And then they'd be like, I gotta rest. I don't know why you're so mean to me. I'd be like, this is all Rick's fault.
It's all Rick. It all comes back to Rick saying no to me. Yeah.
But then I feel like Newfoundland would just be like, there'd be a red dot going around, like, you know, searching for me of like, why didn't you help this person out? You are now banned off to like, I don't know, like Alberta. And I'd be like, wow, why Alberta? They'd be like, well, that's where the Newfoundlanders go when they want to work in oil.
Plus, getting back to why I said yes to you, could have something to do with us coming out to Corner Brook all those years for our snow job shows. Like, listen, man, like Newfoundlanders, like you're the salt of the earth. Like, you people are such amazing, welcoming, hospitable, friendly, like the list goes on and on and on and on.
We don't know what I learned this in Ontario, but it's like we don't really know what there's boundaries. I'm saying that very politely because it's like I don't know. It's almost like I think a joke that Sean Majunder, a comedian down here, makes is like, you know, there's a difference when you ask a mainlander compared to someone from the East Coast for like directions. A mainlander would just be like, it's to the left, and they don't even care. They'll just look and be like, did he go to the left? I don't care. He's gone on my site. A Newfoundlander's like, where do you got to go? You got to go to the shopping mall. You got to go buy a toothbrush. I got a toothbrush. You want to borrow my toothbrush? And it's like, I don't want to borrow your toothbrush. Why would I want to borrow your? I'm just helping you out, man. You got to brush your teeth. Like, come on. And it's like, sir, boundaries, please.
Yeah. But so warm, so friendly. Oh, thank you. My wife just put the lights on. Thanks, honey. Oh, she's a sweetheart. I guess was I getting dark?
No, you were fine the whole time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I know it's coming to an end, but better late than never.
Yeah. She was just more or less like, let's shine some light on this subject. He looks a little bit dead. No.
And Brian, if you could smell what I'm smelling right now, Angie has just cooked a gourmet meal. Okay?
I thought that was getting ready for a rock promo there. If you smell.
Yeah. I'm the luckiest right now. Listen, like, honey, what is it, by the way? Oh, did you hear pasta with a bolognese?
Okay, well, don't tell her that I'm not a fan, because then she'll probably you see like the scream thing where she comes in.
You're not a fan of pasta with bolognese? Come on, bro.
No, I'm just not a fan of your wife's cooking. No, I'm only kidding.
Oh, yeah.
I'm joking. Yeah.
Well, you would be if you tried it. Oh no, it's so good. No, I know you're joking. I know.
Yeah. Rick, to close it off, because I know we went a little bit longer than an hour, but I mean, I enjoy always having these chats. I feel like if we had I know you're busy, but if you weren't busy, I'd be like, all right, we're gonna make this a Toba Tonight with Rick podcast where every weekend we ask Rick what he's doing, and he'd be like, leave me alone. How about that? I'd be like, cool. But what is obviously we're in 2022. I know we're still in a pandemic, but what are some things that you're kind of looking forward to or goals that you have? And I believe no matter what age you are, you still have goals. I say that as 30, and people are like, you got to be done with your goals. I'm like, no, I have goals. Why are you being so mean?
Well, I think our goal right now, and I'm going to bring my wife into this too, as parents, our goal is to raise our boys. You know, our two young guys right here, Jack and Harrison, are going to be 6 and 8 very soon. And we are here as parents to teach them right from wrong. We're here to teach them values and morals, and to be good people, and to be good people to other people. And we want to instill that in them at a young age right now, because they're going to take that through life with them. And you know, I'm being honest with you, that is one of my major goals right now. At the age of 52, I just want to pass on what I know in this world and pass it on to my boys, and even my 17-year-old son, Noah, as well. Like, I want them to be the most amazing people that they can be. So that's a huge goal for my wife and I, raising our boys and raising them the right way and doing it the way we want. Now, in terms of career goals, like I said, I've done just about everything. I'm in my early 50s. I've really landed in a beautiful situation where I'm doing this morning show on a Toronto radio station right now, and and I absolutely love it. And I'm not going to go back, and I'm not going to say I have regrets, because I did want to do a talk show at one point, but listen, it didn't happen. It wasn't in the cards for me. But I feel like these days when I bring guests onto my radio show, in a way, it's a small consolation, because it's still happening. Yeah. I'm still getting to interview people, and I've always loved interviewing people since day one. So those are it. It's simple. But number one would be, raising our boys the right way, and getting them ready for that next chapter in their lives when they become older, when they become teenagers, when they become students at university, and then that leads to, settling down with someone and starting their own families. It's our number one goal, to raise our boys the best way we can.
Yeah, no, I agree. The last thing I want to mention though is, like, obviously, get to work on these. Get to work. Come on, I want to see a Rick Campanelli Funko Pop.
All right.
And then I want mailed to me.
Little Lego figurine that resembles me. I remember a movie company sent it when we did Lego Batman with Will Arnett.
Okay.
The movie company sent me a little Rick Campanelli TV host sitting on a couch with a desk, and I don't have those, but maybe one day. Okay, Brian, maybe one day. But I do have a little Lego figurine. I don't know. Maybe I'll show you that next time we're on together.
That's fair. I mean, I would like that, and then just, like, place it in my. I think me and my nephew and niece have been working on, like, the Friends Lego set. Like, we'll finish it eventually. We'll finish it eventually. But yeah, we'll be like, someone will come by and be like, "There's Joey, there's Rachel, there's Phoebe. Why is there another guy on the couch with a mic?" I'll be like, "That is Rick Campanelli. He never was in the show, but we included him in this set.
But we're still friends."
That's going to do it for this episode of Tobin Tonight. Our thanks to Rick Campanelli for coming on to the show. Remember, you can find past, present, and future episodes on TobinTonight.com, Spotify, and iTunes. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and leave a comment or two. For Tobin and myself, this is Jacob saying thank you for listening, and good night.